Hello, everyone. Thank you once again for tuning into the IOEO podcast. I'm your host, John, and today it's just me. But we're going to talk about where we've been, where I've been. More recently, the past couple of weeks here, and over the holiday, unfortunately, you might even see it in my voice now. I've unfortunately been sick. Don't really know why. A lot of people have been getting sick around this time, or at least they had already during this holiday period. That's too bad, but I still had a good time over the holidays with what I was able to allow for myself, right? But we'll talk about some of the more recent developments and also kind of why we've been gone for so long. I did say that I had plans to do podcasts with some other people. That had since fallen through, unfortunately. So where I'm at now, don't really have anything planned outside of what I would still hope for. The one individual, perhaps we can still have them on. The other person, I don't think there's any chance they're going to be on. And then having the advent that we wanted to have somebody from Kosovo, that would have been cool as well. But unfortunately, all the people I keep reaching out to are not interested or busy. Fair enough, I understand. It's too bad, unfortunately, so we're just going to have to do things a little differently. I do have some more topics. I have like 9 or 10 different topics in a notes app on my phone that we can go over, but those will be for another time. Today, it's just kind of a Happy New Year introduction. I guess I should have said that at the beginning, but Happy New Year, everybody. Happy Chinese New Year, and I think it's also the Christmas for Orthodox Christians. So I don't know if it's Merry Christmas for them, but sure. I just had to double check, and yes, Kwanzaa goes from the 26th of December until the 1st of January, and yesterday was the Orthodox Christian Christmas. So happy holidays, everybody. Now we can kind of say precisely what's been going on. And now this isn't a conversation I was super stoked in having. We're going to leave a lot of specifics out simply because, well, one, I don't want to get the publicity towards any of the individuals to be negative. But just as well, I don't want to ride on any negative publicity on my side as well. So what I'm saying is that the person that we're still going to have on, if you guys can connect the dots, you'll find out who's not going to be on. But, if you choose to do so, I suppose you choose to do so. But an individual I'd hope to have on kind of has not gotten back to me since the 11th of December. And not really to discredit them in any way, but it's unfortunate. It's been a couple times so far that we've planned, or at least I've planned, very significant things to collaborate with them. And they'd fallen through, and there was reasons for that, so I could kind of let it slide. But after supporting somebody for 2 years, just types of support where I would help them on their quest with their projects. They had a lot of things they did online. So I was always somebody who would like and share their posts. And, it doesn't really take much. But there was also some organizations I was able to help them or help them get into. And it's just too bad because I did see this person as a friend, but unfortunately it doesn't seem like their priorities are at least include me. Not to say that they need to prioritize or reprioritize their life. But as somebody that I had hoped to collaborate with in a way to help them, it didn't seem like that was something that they were interested with. However, they were still, they were still telling me that would be the case up to a certain point where they just stopped getting in touch with me. So I texted this individual, I think in the beginning of December, and asked them if they wanted to be on the podcast. They had said yes, and this was like, they said actually the words to thank me for all of my support throughout the years. And I was like, yeah, of course, I appreciate that. So that's too bad. But we're not really going to talk about that too much else. I did text them on Christmas. I texted them a couple times before that. And basically, things aren't going to work out anymore. I unfortunately had to make a very tough decision that I won't be supporting them anymore. Not because I don't support their project, but because I don't need to support people that aren't willing to reciprocate any type of support. I never asked them to promote anything that I had, and I never intended for anything that they were doing to embolden my processes or make me money or, any of my businesses to become more successful because I was riding on their coattails. I didn't want that at all. And it was never my intention to make somebody feel bad, but just as well, like I said already, I can't really support somebody who is willing to say that they'll, reciprocate support and then just never do. So that's pretty much all I'm going to say about that. The other individual, I just haven't heard anything back yet. We're still, willing to have them on. But we had planned over the course of the holidays, the 2 weeks, basically the week and the week after Christmas. But things didn't seem to work out, unfortunately, as well. That's too bad, but that's just how things go sometimes. We can't really be too disappointed. We just got to keep moving forward. If anybody remembers back in the day, I say back in the day, I don't know when this really came out, maybe 2010, so 15 years ago. So back in the day, all right. The movie Meet the Robinsons, animated kids movie. The kid goes to the future, and it's a pretty cool movie. I liked it a lot. I've seen it plenty of times. And their motto the entire time was "Keep moving forward." I like that a lot. I think there's a book, or at least a saying from like a runner's magazine, maybe, and that was "Relentless forward motion." Or progress, maybe. Either way. I say that to myself sometimes when it's like difficult to get things done, or if I feel like I'm getting stumped. It's that, at the very least, just keep trying, keep moving forward, relentless forward motion. So I think it's important to keep going with what we got at the very least. Things aren't working out with other people, so it goes. It's not something I'm not accustomed to, I can tell you that. A double negative. I'm very accustomed to this. With my time in business, my time with some relationships, some friends as well. I have to understand that things happen, but a lot of things are outside of our control. But more importantly, as things come, it's about how you choose to act in the situation that determines your reaction. If it's a good situation and you take it in a bad way, well, it's not going to seem like a good situation. If it's a bad situation and you take it in a good way, you can make better of it. That's what I'm going to try to do. So we're going to discuss some of the things that I'm looking forward to this year, outside of what we unfortunately were not able to accomplish over our last year here. I will say 2024, I think, was a good year for me. It wasn't exceptional, it wasn't astounding, but I was able to do a lot of things I wasn't able to do in years prior, and that made me feel good. For sure, that made me feel good. It was very difficult coming off of 2023, which I regard as the single worst year of my entire life. There was certainly some terrible things that happened in 2024, but regardless, we're trying to move past that now. So what I'd rather like to talk about today is a different topic entirely, basically. I would like to entertain some other opportunities for knowledge. So with that in mind, we have some other things we can talk about that are going to be more forward-thinking in a more productive manner. So what I have to talk about is our new projects that I have in mind and some of the things that I hope to accomplish this year as well. So in 2025, it's going to be a big year for me, I hope. I hope to make a lot of money this year, obviously. But more importantly, or maybe equally as important, or as equally important, is my projects that I have in mind, like the anime convention, or that might be more like a nerd con, as well as the newest thing I started doing, and we had actually just posted a video to the channel, which is the Binghamton food review. We're basically just going to go, my business partner and I. That was actually who that was in that video. I should have introduced ourselves, but I just wanted to see how it would do, and we're fine the process after that. But that was JD. He's my business partner. And him and I think since last year, so it's just about been a year now, maybe in like March or so, that we were able to collaborate. Anyway, so we would like to do that together, and we're probably going to try out a lot more businesses. We'd like to do that once a week at least, and we have some other places lined up for us as well. So that's hopefully going to do well. Basically, it'll give us some time to be able to sit down and have a chat about plans coming up for the season. And that'll be actually pretty good as things kind of get closer. I'm thinking this year we're going to open in May, and I'll tell you why. So the weather has been this year so far. I suppose this winter, it's a new year, but the winter has been here, and the past couple of years there has not been snow. It's not really. It's been cold, or it's been windy, or it's been miserable. Like the weather's been bad, but we haven't really had snow. And now that we have snow this year, it makes me think, or this winter, it makes me think that we're going to have a more regular kind of style of what the seasons progress as. It's like, it's not going to be, because last year in February, the last couple days of February, it was 70 degrees out. The entire month of March, it did not crack over 70 once. Probably not even over 60 degrees, probably not even over 50 degrees. And then April comes and it's a little warmer, it's a little colder, the weather's still not the best. But we can basically guarantee that come May, every day will be nice and warm, and that we can expect the weather to be cooperative. It might rain, but that's how it goes sometimes. But we're hoping to kind of do something about that. We have to have some discussions with the city. Not really looking forward to that because I have a lot to go over with the city, and I would actually like to have the chance to sit down with the mayor so we can kind of go over what we can expect the police presence to look like. Maybe that's more of a question I can have with some of the officers. But it seems like if it's up to the mayor's discretion or maybe the sheriff's discretion of what that looks like, after speaking to some people in the office, city clerk's office and the economic development center and councilman. I was never able to really speak with the mayor himself, so it would be very helpful if I was able to kind of see where things are headed, so we can expect to, I'll put it this way. I hope that some things have changed. It's not going to really determine if we're going to be in Binghamton or not this year. If anything has happened, okay, hopefully it's for the best. If nothing has happened, we're just going to do the best we can like we did last year. One of the things I did say to my business partner, which I'm not really afraid to say up here on the podcast, is if I do end up getting attacked or if I get robbed or jumped or anything like that again while I'm in downtown, I said we'll never be back to the city again. There's reason for that, but we'll get into that maybe some other time. But basically, I told him that if we're ever attacked again, if I'm ever jumped, if I ever get robbed, at this point, there's nothing else I could basically do. I can't really encourage the city to do the right thing, for the second time, or to not, or to prevent something that should not have happened for the second time. But that's just causing trouble, or that's just asking for trouble, or expecting things to happen that might not happen at all. But we would hope that some things will change this year, and I don't have to be as afraid to sell ice cream on the street side corner. We'll see what happens. Regardless, my other projects that I have in mind, the Holistic Health and Wellness Fair. Hopefully, there's still some things that are up in the air for that, so maybe I won't say so much. But I'm hoping that'll go off without a hitch this year. We're thinking about working with another business local to Binghamton. I'm not really going to say much. I think I've brought this up a couple times, maybe on the podcast as well. But basically, we're going to try to work with another company, another business in Binghamton that has a pretty good area for where we could host the fair. And hopefully that'll kind of be a good incentive for people to go outside of just go outside, but also come to the fair and also, get to enjoy their property, I suppose, as well. Now, I'm trying to be pretty vague because I don't want to give information out if nothing's really set in stone. But that's what we can expect this year with the fair so far. As for the NerdCon or the anime convention and why it's maybe becoming more like a NerdCon now is because if it's going to be more inclusive to people to cosplay as anything, which that's kind of really what I want. I really want to see some people. I want to see Master Chief. I want to see people in the full Warhammer 40,000 get ups. I want to see people in really cool anime costumes and things like that. I want to see the giant weapons, all that. That would be really, really cool. I think that's not the most luxurious way to say, oh, I think it'd be really, really cool. That's why I think it would be astounding. I think it would be really creative, and a lot of people could get into that for sure. I could see that being a blast, and the people that absolutely go nuts, go balls to the wall, want to go crazy and make this crazy, expensive maybe costume. It doesn't have to be necessarily expensive, but something super detailed. They're oh, it's all foam, but it looks real, yada yada. That would be so cool. That would be absolutely so cool. And just as well, after we had a conversation with Andreas from, well, I say Andreas, but he goes by Dreas Hip Hop on it. Well, he doesn't go by Dreas Hip Hop. He usually just goes by Dreas, but he was on the podcast not so long ago. Shout out to Andreas as always. And he would absolutely be down to participate as well. And so at the very least, if it's not super centralized around anime, it could be a bunch of just nerdy stuff. Because if you weren't familiar with John, that he's an absolute gigantic nerd. The things I mentioned like Halo and Master Chief, I've never played Halo. I just know that people like it. Or Warhammer 40,000. I think there's a tabletop game. There's figurines that you can use to play that game. There's also video games. I'm not into that necessarily. I think it's cool. I think the art style is interesting. I have a respect for stuff like that. If people really enjoy it, there must be a reason for it. So it's why not include that? And if there's a lot of people in the area that are I'm not really an anime fan, but I like this stuff. It's well, we want you guys to come as well. But the cosplaying is really where I'm just really excited to see what people could do. I think the first time there might be one or two people that really go absolutely nuts and create these incredible detailed costumes that are super accurate. that would be really cool. And then obviously, one of them is going to win the grand prize, which is probably just going to be some money, honestly. I have an idea of I mean, it's pretty simple. With my time working in the Rotary Club, they did a lot of fundraising and they did a lot of public events, so I can understand the best way to go about organizing things like that. For example, you could do like a 50-50. So say if you come in and you cosplay and you're like, oh, I want to be part of the costume competition. Okay, it's like $10 to enter, and we have 150 people enter and they all give us $10. That's $1,500, and we just say 50% of that, so it's $750, right? Is that correct? Yeah, $750. That goes towards our event, so we're able to rent the equipment, we're able to hire the people that we need to hire and whatever else. And then the other 50%, so that $750, that goes to the person that wins. Or we could do things like 75-25, if it's like depending on, I don't know. I think 50-50 would be a fair medium to do it. And if enough people enter it and the ticket price, with the ticket price to enter, we don't really want there to be any ticket price to enter the convention. But if you want to join the cosplay competition, if it's like $10 to enter, because then that encourages people to really want to win. I mean, what's $10? If you want to you're probably going to be spending a lot more than $10 if you come to this convention as well. There's going to be a lot of stuff to do, a lot of places to go buy stuff from. Like the Funko Pops and bobbleheads and any type of collectibles, comic books, whether it be, manga as well, or actual comic books, or, people's art or digital art or anything, absolutely anything. I just want it to be such a cool place for people to go and be like, oh my God, I can just nerd out for hours. I could just go to absolutely every stall and check out everything, whether it be Pokemon, whether it be like cardboard cutouts and body pillows and all that crazy stuff. That'll just be a lot of fun. But I think that'll probably be a good idea. We'll try to centralize everything around, there's come in for the booths and everything, but the main attraction, I do want the main attraction to be the costume contest, or the cosplay costume contest. So whether it's $10, $15 to enter, and you just go on stage for 5 seconds, maybe do a twirl, a little dance, and then it's okay, and everybody votes. I think that would be really cool. I think a lot of people would enjoy that. And, the more we do it, say this year it's pretty big, enough people come, say 500 people come. The first year that I did the Holistic Health and Wellness Fair, we had about 800 people come. It was 700 and something. So throughout the course of the day, we could say that there was almost 800 people. So, 750, 770 people. So with that, if we had 1,000 people for our first time, because it would be centralized in downtown, hopefully. And so, even people that don't know about it could be like, oh yeah, I'm free, I can go. So hopefully that would be cool. Or it would be cool. Hopefully that would be something that's available for people, I guess. But if you go down and enough people, next year they see and they're like, oh, okay, now we have 2,000 people come. The idea is that if we're able to get another company or some other association to sponsor us or to sponsor that portion of the convention, then we can be like, okay, there's a $10,000 grand prize versus $750, brought to you by some bank or some other association. And that would make people want to go crazy. And the best part about that is the more that gets people excited, the more popular that gets, the more money that people are able to win from it, and the more people want to come the next year. So it's multiplicative. Every single year you have more people join, you have more people try out, you have more people create costumes, and you have more people make money on it. We could have first, second, third, fourth, fifth places. Depending on how many people do it. And that's basically the idea for the centralized reason to have the I want to say show, but it's a convention. So whether it be a nerd convention or nerd con, or there be an anime convention, it's going to have all the stuff that people can enjoy. So that'll be great, and I'm very excited for that. I still have to do basically all the coordinating for that. It's just a pie in the sky idea for me right now, and there's a lot that I still have to work on. And there's some priorities that I have to get straight for, other things that are not my first year doing it. So, that'll be a little easier for me. But having discussions with the city to say, hey, is this something we can do here? At the very least is the first step. But I think that's going to be in the bag. I can't see them saying no. We do plenty of events in downtown. I can't imagine if we wanted to work with some people and I got the right people to come with me, at the very least, they will listen to me, and they have in the past. So hopefully we can get that squared away. But then afterwards, it's just, getting the right people in the same room and saying, okay, how do we do this? Or, what should we do? Because I have a great idea. This is not my first rodeo when it comes to planning fairs or planning conventions, I suppose, in any way. But That's something I'm very excited for. Obviously, the more people that get involved with that, we don't just have to do the show or the costume contest as well. I also want there to be a little bit like a concert. Maybe we can have like DJs come. We can have people show off their music for a little bit. I think that would be a lot of. I'm just so into getting people together that are like-minded and can collaborate and create something greater. Yeah, you're gonna come. You might spend money. You might be out some money if you're into like, I'm somebody that doesn't like to spend money. Okay, this isn't probably something that you're gonna be super interested in outside of just coming and enjoying the atmosphere, right? But there should hopefully be a plenty of free things that we can do as well. That'll maybe be my question for you guys, because this is something I do really want to put a lot of time into and make it an annual ordeal. That'd be fantastic. What are some things you would like to see at this NerdCon or this convention, the Binghamton Anime Convention or the Binghamton NerdCon or whatever, that you would like to see? And some advice maybe that you could offer us as well. I'm always into accepting advice from people. If you have any type of cool ideas, if you're like, oh my gosh, I absolutely love this very super niche and specific thing, like, I don't know, some video game. If you're like, oh, I love, personally, I'll say I like Oblivion, the Elder Scrolls games. I absolutely love. I've played a lot of Skyrim. And I really do like Oblivion as well. I just started playing it I guess last year, a couple months ago. And I really got into it, and I think it's fun. And so somebody was like, oh man, I absolutely love Oblivion too. It's kind of niche. It's like 18 or 19 years old at this point. I think it came out in 2006. So yeah, 19 years old. Jeez. Anyway, and if somebody really liked that, I'd be like, absolutely, get in here. I'm sure there's going to be some people there that are going to, I'll be honest with you. Even if people are like into furries, stuff like that, or if they're like, I'm not going to say that furries are super weird. That's just not something that I would like. And so just because I don't like it doesn't mean it's weird. And I hope a lot of people can kind of reevaluate their feelings about things like that. We don't have to judge people because they enjoy things that we don't, or that we don't fully understand. So whether it be furries or whether it be like My Little Pony, or like some other things that people can say are like cringe, you are all welcome, because it's not about proving to other people that you have a worthiness to exist. It's enjoying your worthiness to exist, which everybody inherently has. You are worthy. So if you enjoy something, enjoy the fuck out of it. And do it for me. Do it for me. At the very least, if you can't enjoy it because you're afraid of other people, know that John Holmberg is not going to judge you for whatever you like, as long as it's, not harming anybody. I'll end with that, I suppose. But hopefully everything works out with the convention that we have. I'll just refer to it as the convention. I'm sure I'll be able to say that a million more times, but that's the plan. Basically, we still have a lot of work to do. It's only January now, but I believe by the same time, hopefully I can start this season this year, maybe before. I'm not sure if we'll start like May 1st for the ice cream season for Vibes World Ice Cream, or if it's going to be like the middle or end of May. Back in 2020, which isn't like the best year to base things off of, it was just my first year selling ice cream. We started the 30th of May, or maybe it was the 31st, because I quit my job one of those days, and then the next day I was in downtown selling ice cream. So that's the hope for everything this year, or not everything, but at least for the ice cream season starting, sometime in May for sure. The anime convention probably also taking place in May, whether it be before, during, whatever, during time my season starts, we'll see. And then with everybody else that I have including, or I have plans to include for the podcast. But that's pretty much it for those two things. I can expect the anime convention to be sometime in May, and my seasons to start for the ice cream season. 2025, my 6th year in business, I can definitely expect it to be sometime in May. That's still up in the air. I can't say with certainty, but we'll find out soon as that time approaches. Otherwise, exciting things to look forward to this year. By the end of this year, I can almost guarantee I will be selling socks on TikTok or online, wherever. I don't think YouTube has like a shop option, but they definitely do have one on TikTok, and I think they have one on Facebook and Instagram as well. So we'll see. I'll have to look into it a little bit more. If TikTok ends up getting banned is why I bring that up. But just as well, I've done the socks with John for over a year now, and I've seen a lot more success lately than I had, a year ago, thankfully. But it feels good to be able to say that by the end of this year, hopefully by the end of 2025, I can definitely expect to be selling socks. So that'll be great. I'll have my own sock company. I've always wanted that. So I get to design my own socks. If anybody doesn't know, and I've said this many, many times, for every pair that we sell, we will donate a pair to whether it be the Salvation Army or another charity as well. We might have to actually start our own charity, which could be fun as well. That's just more of the exciting things that we could put on our docket before we make the big exciting switch to what I choose to do in like 10 or 15 years time, which maybe we'll get into that sometime. My grand plan, John's grand plan. Maybe that'll be the title of this episode, John's grand plan for 2025. Probably perfect, actually. That sounds good enough for me. But John's grand plan for 2025 is, we're going to keep doing the podcast probably on I'll have to do it more often now. We definitely took a big break, and unfortunately, I don't think this video will do pretty well because, simply for that reason. We were gone for a while. We're going to do the Binghamton food review probably every Sunday. You can expect the video to either come out on a Monday, but we will record on Sunday. I mean, last time I got it out on Sunday. So we'll see what happens, to be honest with you. But we'll do that every week. At least once a week, or only once a week, most likely, we're going to do the Binghamton food review. We're also going to do the podcast, as always, a couple times a week. Socks with John, hopefully, is every single day. And then as the season approaches, we'll be doing the anime convention. That's probably going to be sometime in May, April or May. We'll see what happens. And then for the ice cream season, that'll also be starting in May. And then we have the Holistic Health and Wellness Fair that will most likely be in June. And then I have plenty of things that, it'll be prime ice cream time for June, July, August. And then we'll probably try to get into some of the businesses that we tried to last year collaborate with. Things didn't necessarily work out, unfortunately. We'll really have to reevaluate our plan for exactly what we want to do with collaborating with businesses. We'll have to see. Just whatever's available for us is what we're going to have to go with. But just as well, that'll be our summer. And then as we get closer to the end of this year, October time, actually, that's interesting. Am I just going to have to, hopefully, we'll have a big enough online presence that I can spend more time doing the podcast. And then Socks with John by the end of this year, hopefully, will be full-fledged selling mode. So that'd be good, because otherwise I'll just be stuck in the same situation of having to create something for next year that will have me occupied over the winter. I mean, Socks with John, it's been doing okay. It's been doing good. I haven't made any money on it yet, but people have been willing to actually send me some socks. I wish I had the opportunity today. The past 3 days I've been able to, well, I haven't been able to. I had a migraine yesterday, and I've not been sleeping the past 2 days regardless. So unfortunately, I was not able to go to the post office like I needed to. And the week before, obviously, with New Year's Day, New Year's Eve, they were closed, and that was really unfortunate. Anyway, so hopefully things do work out. That is the plan. Obviously, I have a lot of other things that could probably come up that I'd love to do as well. This might be a question as well. Maybe I could do cooking videos, because that's kind of fun. I am actually a pretty good cook. I don't know if anybody had seen, but I had made a beef Wellington, or technically it was just a Wellington, because it was made with a venison tenderloin, which was so good. Oh, it was so good. Let me just sidetrack for a second so I can indulge in my memory of how good maybe the first one was good. And I posted a video in our YouTube Shorts. You can find it. I think it was, well, actually, it was New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. So I made it for December 31st, and then the next day I made another one. And I'll tell you what, the second one I made was so much better than the first one. I overcooked the first one. Unfortunately, yeah, it was like medium well almost. Maybe not medium well, but it was like medium, no pink. I was really disappointed from that. I mean, I wasn't like heartbroken. It was just like, whoop-de-doo. But then the next day, because we had, all the same ingredients, basically, I went to the store and got some more stuff. And then I made another one. And this, let me just say, guys, if you've never had a Wellington, like I said, I didn't have a beef Wellington. Mine was venison. I love venison now. I didn't used to eat it when I was younger. But if you've never had a Wellington, a beef Wellington, venison Wellington, any type of Wellington, you're missing out. You are missing out. Especially if you can make it yourself, and especially it's not really that hard, but especially if you're able to use some really good meat. Because that tenderloin, my dad hunts, and so that venison, we got that from a deer that he had shot. Whether it would be with bow or whatever he used. But so that was a deer that he had hunted for. and got, and oh man, it's just different. You can't buy that at the store. Maybe you can. That'd be cool if you can get venison from the store. Oh, that'd be really cool actually. But no, you really can't around Binghamton. I can't say that I've ever gone to a store and see them selling venison, especially like locally hunted venison. But just as well, that's my encouragement to anybody. I think it was cool because it was like, on the day or the day before, or sorry, the last day of 2024, I made a Wellington, and it didn't really turn out good. But then the next day, I got to try again, and it was absolutely perfect. Absolutely divine. I would make it again, and I would do some things differently still to make it better. Um, oh, but my God. Oh, good Lord. It was so good. It was so good. The first time I'd made it the day before was my sister and her husband came over, and so we had it for dinner. But then the next day it was just my father and my mother, and we ate the whole thing in one night. It was gone. My dad had like three pieces. I had like three pieces. I think my mom had probably two or three pieces, depending on how often or how many times I could have cut it. But it was so good. I can't say it enough, guys. I'm sorry if I'm still going on, but indulging aside, I would encourage anybody if they really just want to try to cook something to just try it out. Cooking, it can be scary if you're not very well versed in like safety protocols. But once you get used to, like, if you ever worked in a kitchen, it's been like busy and you're working like hot, you're working like the stove. That you just got to get over. Working with knives and having to use knives fast, you just got to be safe. And then once you get confident with it, then you can just go. But also, like working on a stove or working on a hot station, frying grease and stuff like that. That's scary. And I still have scars. I mean, maybe not so much anymore. It's been a while since I worked in a kitchen where I had to like cook. It wasn't like a fast food place or it wasn't like my ice cream stand. It's been a long time actually. Last time I worked in a restaurant that had a hot station was in 2020, 5 years ago. Wow. But regardless, you just got to get over that. And once you get confident in the kitchen, you feel like you can cook anything, you really can. Or at least try it out. And then, the next time you cook it, you'll be magnitude better. So if you guys want to see some stuff like that, I would totally be down for that. I would be down to make some cooking content on the channel. We'll see what does good, because I posted that me cutting my Wellington on TikTok, and it's my most popular video on there. It's like, great. I have 5,000 views on this video, but then I have a year and some worth of sock videos that have like 500 max, and it's like, okay, sure. So if that's what's popular, I'm still going to do the socks, obviously, just because that's a lot of fun. We still have to make our video today. I don't know if I'm going to be able to go to the post office. Yeah, most likely not. I'm recording this right now. It's 3:42. It just changed. 3:42 p.m. And they close at 5. So, yeah, by the time I even finish recording this, I have to wait, for somebody to be able to drive me there, unfortunately. Because I no longer have a car since the middle of December. That was really too bad. But, things happen. Just got to get over that. Regardless, so yeah, we're not in like the best position in my life. We'll talk a little bit about that, I suppose. There's a lot that I wanted to get into today. And this is kind of just like John speaking. And this is a little more informal for me because there's not a lot of information I feel like I'm passing along that's super relevant to be emboldening somebody's life, solving a problem, fixing something, offering solutions, This is just John giving details about his life, and if it's interesting, it's interesting. And if not, then, oh well, I'm not that heartbroken by it. But I do believe that there's some things that need to be said. And this is a space that I like to hold for, myself as well as others to come and speak their mind. If I really feel like something needs to be said, I'll do my best. Let's get into possibly a direction of the channel that we used to entertain back when I did it with some other friends. We were actually the In1 Out podcast channel. Now it's just Jonathan Holmberg because I do a lot of other stuff. And I conceptualized the idea with another friend that I'm still only friends with him now. So, he came up with the name and now I rock it with the channel. So there's no bad blood there. Good friend of mine still. But everybody else that I had on the podcast, I don't speak to anymore. So unfortunately, they're not going to be on again. Regardless, if that's not already obvious, I think that's pretty clear. But that's not the point. The point is, with what I'd like to do, we have a myriad of opportunities to try for anything during or while we make content, right? So anything that's on this podcast, I can make content out of anything. But we want to keep things local to Binghamton, and we don't really want to talk about politics. I've had this conversation a couple times. Reason B, it sensationalizes kind of the misfortunes of others. Some people are liking one thing, and it's like, okay, once it's implemented, is it really going to help everybody or whatever? And then, I'll put it this way. For a large portion of the voter base in this country, a lot of people think that their candidate is absolutely indisposable. And not in the way of like they can't get rid of him because, there's nobody else who could do a better job. They believe that, I guess I'll just say, MAGA supporters, it's kind of scary, I will say, to see the cult-like following that a lot of them kind of associate with Trump. I'm not going to say too much about this because, we're not trying to talk about politics. I think it is appropriate. I still have had it in mind to try and to have some people on that actually have a conversation about politics. We'll see what that happens, what that turns out to be. But basically, if I have a dedication or the idea for this channel is that it's solely dedicated to talking about politics, we're going to alienate a lot of people because that's, not everybody's interested in politics. And also, it's not super productive I'll put it this way, just to bitch about how the world is and what we can't do about it. It's not productive to just say, oh, these terrible things that are happening in the parts of the government that you and I don't even have a single thing to do with. So what's the point in even bringing it up? But what I'm saying is, for the large percentage of the voter base in this country, right, a large majority apparently at the last election, is that it's a little scary how things have kind of progressed. I will say that I didn't really expect a lot of the things that are kind of being talked about now by Donald Trump or what he says that he's going to do. I'm very surprised, I'll say. And I'm not trying to criticize him in this. I have plenty of criticisms for him, and maybe some could be found in the words that I'm using, but it's not to be, I don't intend to be critical in this moment. I will say that I'm surprised and maybe a little bit, I won't say upset, and I'm scared in regards of he's doing things that he didn't say he was going to do, and it seems like his priorities were hidden the entire campaign process. So in that way, Donald Trump had never said during his campaign that Canada should be part of the United States. Mind you, as a moderate. And I don't have political affiliations. I try my absolute best. And if you've listened to any of our podcasts in the past, and I've had a little bit of discussions, you will know that I do not support Donald Trump in the absolute slightest. I think he's not good for this country, but we can get into that some other time. But also that I'm a moderate and that I don't agree with political party ideas at all. Well, not at all. I pull from the left and the right, but there are the very idea that political parties exist or that there's only two. That's not something that I can agree with. However, even though I'm not a supporter of Donald Trump, I think that the Canada and United States, if there was a merger, that would be absolutely great for both countries. I went to Canada back in 2023. I guess 2 years ago now. That was a lot of fun. I was there for 3 days. It was just myself, and it was a very eye-opening experience. You know what I did? I went around Montreal. That's where I went, and I spoke to just as many people as I could. I paid I gave homeless people some money, and they just talked to me. This one guy, his name was Kenny. Kenny. And hilariously enough, he wore kind of like it wasn't like an orange coat, but it was like a brown puffy coat. So it was like Kenny from South Park, but not really. And I got to talk to him, and I got to talk to some people at a mall. I got to talk to some other homeless people, and I got to talk to one person who actually moved from Connecticut into Canada, and then somebody else who had lived in Canada basically their whole life. And that was at a bar. One of them was the waitress, and somebody else was just like somebody who had happened to be there. So I got to speak to a lot of people, and so I heard firsthand the things that they were dealing with. So I got to hear about their health care. I got to hear about their taxes. I got to hear about their homelessness issue, about how the drug, they have drug problems as well. How their history is, and how, they have natives that have also been basically forcibly removed from territories to allow for, at the time it was British settlements. So, they're also a British colony as well. And they didn't get their independence technically fully to start their own parliamentary government until I think it was the 70s. I want to say 1973. I'm going to get the exact year in 2 seconds. I just looked it up, and according to ChatGPT and the source that it gave me, it was the patriation of the Constitution, which was in 1982. Apparently, since the late 1800s as well, there were also some efforts to kind of gain or give more authority for Canada to govern themselves. Obviously, there was the War of 1812, and that's kind of why we have the borders we have today, actually, with northern parts of the United States and Canada, which is interesting. I already knew some of that. The 73, I thought it was 73, but it's not. It's 1982 was the year that they got their constitution, basically, that gave them full sovereignty from the United Kingdom and Great Britain. That's pretty cool. But regardless, so I'll put it this way. For the Donald Trump campaign, he never said along the way that he was going to annex Canada. I can agree that I think Canada and the United States together would be really good, because some of the things that I heard from Canadians in Canada that I got to speak to a myriad of different people, whether they be employed, whether they be born there forever, whether they have native roots. I met some people at a bar. I played pool with them. That was very interesting. Or whether they be homeless. I heard from all sorts of people, or from business owners. I tried my best. I didn't really get to talk to anybody that was like a statesman or in government or anything, or somebody that was like really old and had lived in Canada and seen like a lot of different things changed. All the people I spoke to, I think the oldest was maybe 40, like 40 years old. Well, maybe not. Another guy was maybe in his 50s. He was a homeless individual who was a native. And that was pretty cool. A big guy, very tall. Anyway, Donald Trump never said in his campaign that he wanted to annex Canada. I can agree that maybe United States and Canada, it would do very well, because they have high taxes. And even though they do have socialized healthcare, it's not really that good, right? And so if the United States and Canada were to merge, my preferred way to do it was Canada gets lower taxes, right, from joining the union. And then we, as the offset to try to encourage them to join, is that we revolutionize basically our healthcare industry, so that we can kind of incorporate the way they do things with a little bit of socialized medicine or Medicare or whatever, or healthcare rather. And then they can enjoy lower taxes. Because at the time, the guy I was talking to said he only gets to enjoy, meaning his takeaway, he gets to enjoy 40% of his paycheck. That is absolutely crazy for me. And so, people that he says the waiting lists to try to get in some of the hospitals, like if you really have something wrong, he said you still have to end up paying for it. Like if you need like extra special care, it's not socialized. So it's not fully socialized. So say something happens to you and you're like, I got to go to the emergency room. Okay, you get the emergency room and it's packed and there's tons of people before you. And say you have like, a disease, or like you're sick, you don't know what's going on, you need to see a doctor, and you're like, I need to see somebody immediately. You're probably going to have to wait. And this is what some of the people told me, is that there's reports of people dying waiting in line for the and mind you, this was like 2 years after, or 3 years after COVID. It was 2023 for me when I went. So this wasn't people dying of COVID in the line, or he wasn't even talking about like the excessive, because every healthcare system in the world was strained by COVID. So you can't say that, okay, well, during the past 3 years, it was terrible. Well, there could be a reason for that, the damn pandemic, right? But moreover, he said there's people that are dying in line. There's reports they hear all the time. And it's like the biggest criticism against the, certain parts of the government that want to, that are for socialized government, for socialized healthcare, and the other ones that are not. Like the biggest argument they really have is, okay, you didn't really do it right. Like there's better ways to do it if we should do it at all. I think a lot of them agree enough that socialized medicine or socialized healthcare is a very important thing. And a lot of people in the United States also think that having socialized healthcare, like if our taxes are going to be collected in such a large drove, like, depending on who you are, you might get taxed high, but you're not getting taxed to the extent of over 50% at all. At least income tax wise. You might, if you get taxed at like the highest tax bracket, which I think is like 35%, and that's at like over 500, or was it $420,000 or something? Or is it $470,000? You have to be making basically $500,000 a year to be in the high. I think that's not even the highest tax bracket. I think the highest is like over that. it doesn't necessarily matter. I'd have to pull up a chart to look at like exactly and have to do some math. So we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to worry about like rough estimates. Say if you are in the highest tax bracket, okay, which is I'm pretty sure it's 35%. That is the only thing I will double check. Yes, I just looked it up. It's actually 37%. It's the highest, so it's not even 40%. So that means that you're taking home more than 60% of the income if you're making, and this is what I just saw, over 600, I'm just going to say over 6 because of the exact number, whatever. Over 600,000 for single filer, and if you're married filing, it's just over 7,000 or 700,000. So that's 37% taxable, or tax rate. That is not even close to what somebody in a Canadian would be facing if they get their paycheck back. Because this individual I had spoken to is in computer science. He said he got a job. He was from India, and then he moved to Connecticut, and then he moved to Canada. And I think he had to move to Canada because he had family there, or something, or there's better opportunities or whatever. But he was kind of miserable actually, which was interesting. Because he seemed like he was well off, but he was like, yeah, he was laughing, kind of laughing into his drink as he's telling me. So I could tell there was a little bit of like, something was really eating him a little bit. It was pestering him that he had to pay so much taxes. And he thought, what's the best opportunity for you if you're having problems one place and you try to better yourself and you're just running into new problems? It's like, okay, is it better or is it just different? It's like, well, it's both. It's better and different, but that's a lot. So I think that's something that's very difficult because it's like I would agree that the United States and Canada could probably be stronger together. I think the United States would benefit more than Canada. Obviously, we have a higher GDP. We have a much higher population. I think the population of the United States is just over 330 million. And for Canada, it's about 30 million. That's a lot. That's 10%. That's 10%. Their GDP is about 2.9 trillion. Ours is about 25 trillion. That's a lot still. I think Canada's like I won't say, but there's certain countries in Europe that don't even have $1 trillion GDP. There's only a couple actually. But the interesting thing is, if we actually annex Canada, Canada is the second largest country on the planet. It goes Russia, Canada, China, United States is the fourth, and then it is, I think Brazil is the fifth. I'm just doing this off the cuff because I like to trying to remember this. And then it is, I think, Algeria, I think, is the 10th. Australia maybe is the 6th. And then after that, I think it goes Turkey, Ukraine, Algeria. I'm thinking that's correct. That's just, for the specific fact checking, I'm not going to look that up because that's just I just said that because I wanted to see if I could. But I know the top four, it goes Russia with about 19 million square miles, and then I think the United States has like 7.5 million square miles, or maybe more than that. But Canada is the second largest country on the planet, so it would immediately make the United States the largest country, by a pretty large margin actually compared to Russia. And also strategically in having the Arctic North, being able to reinforce that with our military, which is also why Trump wants to annex or he wants to buy Greenland. Again, Greenland's a separate conversation. I don't think that would be best for the people of Greenland to be basically taken over by the United States. They want independence from Denmark. They might get that, but I don't think being in the hands of the United States would be best for them. We live different lives, and they have different ideas for things that directly conflict with American values. And it's nothing like terribly like, oh, we're not patriotic, or they're not like into this or that. It's just that they have values that would have to be diminished because the United States doesn't have the same laws that like we have the Second Amendment, right? And that's another thing for the Canadians that they kind of worry. Like they have very strict gun laws in Canada, depending on where you go. What would that mean basically if because we have a lot of problems here. I wanted to have a conversation actually with somebody, I'm sure we still will, about mass shootings and about school shootings in the United States, because that's a very difficult topic, because we understand just as well, and this is maybe where politics invade our rational thought, but we know that there's a mental health problem and we know that there is a gun problem. The gun problem is that there's a lot of guns and that people are able to get their hands on them easily. I won't say that necessarily the specific type of gun is the problem. I think if somebody's going to do something, that could allow for a greater harm to happen for sure. But I'll put it this way. If somebody's really interested in hurting people, they don't need a gun to be able to do that. They're going to find a way to be able to do that. So whether it be somebody using a high capacity machine gun, fully automatic rifle with, attachments and whatnot, and really going and killing people, or whether they're making an improvised explosive device, which, it sucks to say, but you can find things like that on the internet and then go and do something terrible with that. I don't encourage that absolutely at all. And as a matter of fact, if you're listening and you think that these words are being used as encouragement for that regard, then you're wrong, because that's not the case. We haven't spoken about this yet, and I don't really want to. But the Buffalo shooter, if people are familiar with that, that's somebody actually from an area that I'm close to, or that's kind of almost my hometown. I don't really want to say too much about it because it was an absolutely terrible thing, and we're doing our best as an area to try to get over that. But if you're not familiar, a certain individual went up into Buffalo and went to a supermarket and killed 10 black people. He shot 13 people that were all black. It was a hate crime. Basically, he was radicalized. He had a manifesto. He had written all over the guns, terrible things or super racist things. And that's terrible. And as an American, I would feel absolutely terrible if we brought in countries into the Union, and then the problems that we had, like school shootings or mass shootings, started popping up in their countries. That's not fair to them. So there's obviously things that would make that difficult, but if it's just a state by state thing, I don't know. We could say that the provinces just become their own states now, and then they keep most of their gun legislation. Then more power to you, Canada. But I think it would be mutually beneficial for sure for Canada. But as for Panama, as for Greenland, these are things that are more worrisome, because that's just imperialist mentality to take over our neighbors because we can, to revoke sovereignty because we're opposing power because we can. It's just not an American value. I mean, it's demonstrated in our American history plenty of times, and I can't say it's the things that I'm most proud of as an American, to know that what we did during the Mexican-American War, or what we did with the Indian Removal Act and the Trail of Tears, or what we did in the Spanish-American War. Knowing these things and knowing the history that the United States is, for most of its history, an imperialist power, it doesn't make me feel good that, and especially with the motto that Donald Trump had during his campaign, which was "No new wars." Get the fuck out of here. I'm sorry. But if you can support annexing Greenland with military force or with economic force, or invading Panama and occupying Panama as the American military, but just as well, you were somebody who was like, yeah, I'm voting for Trump because no new wars, or that you were worried that Harris was going to start World War III. You're just so, it's a problem because you were misguided in the beginning. Now, I'm not even going to say that I hate you for it at all. It's just, you were basically tricked. Because I'm not going to say I would have voted for Donald Trump if he said in the election, during the election, that we were going to annex Canada. I could agree that I think it's a great idea in certain regards, but there's also things that I could disagree with. But the reason that this is, and I had used these words before, scary, and what I've already said already, is because of our country's history as an imperialist power. And just the world's history of an imperialist or colonial power is that these countries will oppress the people of these nations that they want to indoctrinate and include into their nation. And that's a humanitarian crisis waiting to happen. And it's more disturbing to know that during the campaign, his biggest things his biggest talking points were, he said lots about immigration. We're not even going to talk about that today. But some of these things were why start a war with people? Why endanger American troops? But then the plan is to basically gain all this new territory. That's not conducive, that's not cohesive for what his plan has been so far. So it's very interesting. I'm sure we're gonna have more nuanced conversations about this at some point. I'd love to be able to have some people on so we can kind of hold discussions for this. But what I was trying to say earlier and what I'm kind of getting at now is that on this channel, on this new channel, we haven't really discussed any type of world politics or world um, anything happening, I suppose, or happenstance. So it's with that in mind that I'm trying to think of ways we could still incorporate that because I think, one, it'll be popular, but also I think it's relevant. I think it's relevant to our local area simply because it could influence our economy. I'm from New York. I'm from Binghamton. I know a lot of people. I mean, not like I personally know them. Like, it's like, oh, hey, Dave, how you doing? How's Canada going? To say that like, I know a lot of people that are Canadian, but living in New York, there are all the time. If you're on the highway, you see people that have Quebec license plates or Ontario license plates all the time. It's commonplace, very very commonplace. I mean, we border Canada. I mean, you go an hour north, maybe 2 hours north, and you can go to the Canadian border, maybe a little bit more than that. When I drove to Montreal, it took me 5.5 hours, and three of those hours were actually in Canada. And I went through Watertown, which I found out, if you want to just straight shot go to the border, you got to go you can go through Rochester, you can go through Buffalo. Or not through Buffalo, you can go, I guess, through Buffalo, yeah. I went through Watertown, which is like northern New York. They call it Upper New York, I think it is, which is basically, last stop before Canada. And a lot of people up there, a lot of people even in northern or upper New York are Canadian, or they're from Canada, or they were Canadian. So we're pretty integrated already with Canadians. I mean, it's not like there's an abundance of them. It's not like but to the extent of, I can't tell you how much Canadian currency I have because, I'm a coin collector as well, so maybe that helped out. But when I go to the bank and I take out money or I take out rolls to go through them, I haven't done this in a while, but there's always there's a Canadian something in there. And I bet if you go down south, you go to like the Texas and you try to do the same thing, there's going to be, I don't know if there'd be a peso because the conversion rate's not the same. They don't even make pennies in Canada anymore either. They do rounding, which is actually kind of interesting. But regardless, so it's very interesting to think what would change for New York. I can't imagine so much. I'm thinking a lot more Canadians would probably find their way into New York, and then New Yorkers would go up to Canada, and other Americans would go into Canada, and that could be cool. But like I had said before, if I already haven't said it a million times, Donald Trump never ran on it, and it's like, why would you not? So it just makes me feel like everything he said during his campaign was just to get him elected, so that now he can do whatever he wants. I feel like that's a commonality between a lot of voters. That's the thought process, at least for me. But the reason that I think it's worthy to talk about this today, and we will have more nuanced conversations about it, like I'd said, is because it is relative to us. If I lived in Kansas, I probably, and I wanted to keep things local to my area, I don't think I'd be talking about Canada. But I live in a state that literally borders has a long border actually, has a water border as well, with the Great Lakes as well. So a lot of people are familiar with how Canada is. My dad's gone on plenty of bear hunts up in Canada and duck hunts, and I don't know about duck hunts up there, but just as well. So, he's been to Canada plenty of times. I think my mom and dad had gone to Niagara Falls. I don't know if they went to the Canadian side, but it's just something that happens. It's just something that happens. So it would be relevant to talk about it, even though we're farther south. It's not that far. I'm closer to Canada than I am to New York City. I'll tell you that. If I wanted a straight shot to the Canadian border, it'd be closer for me to go to Canada than 3.5 hours away to New York City, which is interesting. So, I mean, and that I haven't really spoken about anything that goes on in New York City either, because that's not really relevant to me. Yes, it is, but I consider New York City and like the rest of New York to kind of be separate entities, because a lot of things happen in New York City, down in the city, down in Long Island, that are not necessarily relevant or even have any impact on the rest of New York. And a lot of things happen in upstate New York that have absolutely nothing to do with downstate. And that's maybe more of the issues of how the New York State government operates, all the things that I could say about that. But maybe that's a good idea, actually. I just convinced myself. I think it's a good idea. We could probably have somebody on from New York City. We could talk about the dichotomy of New York, how there's upstate and downstate and kind of the differences. Because I'll be honest with you, it could be two different states. New York, the economy in upstate New York, it's pretty strong. We have like Buffalo and Rochester and Albany, and where else? They say Syracuse. Binghamton's like the smallest of the largest, the larger cities in upstate New York. So I don't really know. But the politics are also much different as well. So it would just be interesting to see. But yeah, we will. What I'm getting at, I know I haven't said this yet, but what I'm getting at is that we're going to have some episodes of the podcast where we do talk more about world affairs. I think it'll be more exciting to have somebody else on while we do that as well. But just as well, there will be occasions where it's something like this. And this episode, I think, is just going to be called John's Grand Plan and More. Because I just talk about a lot of random stuff. If we were live and I could read like the chat and like people ask me questions and I was able to give my experiences or my advice or my knowledge that I have available, I think it would be pretty helpful. I think that would be very productive. That's a lot of the purpose of this podcast, is to produce something. It is for a tangible, realistic goal to be fulfilled, and then for people to enjoy the fruits of our labor. For me to enjoy the fruits of my labor as well. But if I'm doing all the footwork, I'm doing all the groundwork, and then it's like, hey, I provide this information, I make this video, I do the recording, I take people and get them together so that I can have a factual basis for what we're trying to share with us today. That is a resource for people that I would absolutely be, over the moon to be able to provide. So that's kind of, if I haven't said this already a million different times in every single podcast we record, that this is the principle of the podcast. One of the principles at least, outside of making sure the information that we share with people is factually correct. And that if I don't know something precisely, that I will look it up for you, or I will say otherwise to say, hey, I don't know this precisely, but whatever you're willing to trust me on and do your own independent research. This is why we do the podcast. So it is to embolden the human experience on Earth, and those living in New York, specifically in Binghamton, hopefully we're able to help you out. A lot of it will just be coordinating, or if you wanted to share something. As always, we always have the local musicians on that are going to come and do their music, just as a way to try to show that we support everybody and that they have the opportunity to get some more exposure as well. So we'll actually take a second to do our little plug-in or not plug-in, but just to do our shameless promotion of Sax with John. Of course, I haven't done the video yet for today, but you'll find it soon. As soon as I'm done recording, it'll be Sax with John time. As always, thank you everybody for tuning in for our episodes. We appreciate it that, we do have a little bit of a following. I've certainly grown from when I first started doing the channel. I've had the channel for like 10 years. So, I have 77 subscribers or something like that now. So I appreciate everybody who's tuned in and enjoyed the videos so much. So thank you as always. Go check out our newest video for Sax with John, and soon the other, actually, by the time this is posted, the other video from today will be up. So I think they are Skittles. I think I have Skittle socks for today. Yes. So that'll be excellent. I look forward to that. And thank you always, Sax with John, for producing the podcast. Here, you can probably hear it. Yep, that's me patting myself on the back. Anyway, I don't really have anybody else to show off for today or to promote. So for that much, we're just going to say, that's all. And in that regard, not the podcast. We still got something else I'd like to talk about. So for the past 5 years, I want to say, I've kind of had a plan to, the grand plan for my life. And I think it's important. To be prepared, I'll say. If you plan something and you have the resolve and the gumption, the ambition, you really want it done, I think you can do it. I think anybody can do anything as long as they can put their mind to it. And I know that sounds corny, but that's true. If you really want to do anything in life and you put your mind to it, I think you should be able to do it. You're going to fail a ton of times because that is the way of life unless you get really lucky. And a lot of people understand that, successful people understand that a lot of it sometimes, if you're very successful, is luck. It's luck. What is the quote from Thomas Edison? It's like success is 10%. What is it? Perseveration. And then 90% perspiration, which is like 10% you want to try for it, or sorry, 10% is you want it, and then 90% is you actually trying for it, like sweating. That's what perspiration is. Yeah, I agree with that. And obviously I've done a ton of different things. I've been in a lot of different fields, like a lot of different like crazy things, like, from ice cream to cleaning fish tanks, to making guitars, to putting on fairs, to doing a podcast, to trying to sell socks. It's like, everything I do is like not related at all. It just happens to be the thing that I enjoy and that I think I could be good at. I wanted to do some things that were a little different. I wanted to make some edits of like some really maybe it's kind of weird, but like if I had a speech, I have two ideas. I have two ideas. If I had a speech that I had written that I thought was very provocative, or I thought it was very strong, or that it was worthy to be listened to, um, whether I was giving advice or trying to be educational, or if I wanted to promote something, but moreover, it would probably be motivational. So if I wanted to do that, and I kind of do, I would probably put that on this channel. And I have another idea as well that I'll say quick as well. I wanted to do an excerpt of my book. I wanted to put some music behind it, and just read maybe like a chapter or maybe a part that I thought was very profound that I would like other people to hear in the way that I read it. Because obviously, if you read a book, you have your own interpretation of what the setting is like and what the characters sound like and whatever else. But if it's coming from me and I just happen to be the person who's the author of said book, then it would be, obviously when I'm writing, I have in mind what they sound like. It's not just like, oh, I'll leave this up to the reader's interpretation. Ooh. I mean, there's a lot of things in the book that are supposed to be like that. But what I want the reader to know, I think I do a good job of conveying. Like, it's not like they, for instance, character walks into the city and the moon is out and it's dark. It's like starts to rain, whatever. It's not like, he walks through the city. City could be anything, it could even be daytime. No. There's very much specifics that are important to the story, but there's also allowances that I create for the reader that I want to, there kind of just be questions, and I don't answer some things. There are some things it's like, wait, that's impossible. That couldn't have happened like that. And it's like, well, you'll find out why, both options could have, right? Or maybe you won't, or maybe it's up to your interpretation of how things happen. But, that's okay to a certain degree. So I don't feel like I'm taking away from the book, is what I'm trying to say, is if I started to read parts of it. But that's something else. It's just, that would be cool for the book to be popular. And I think if I did try my best and actually like really whole-assed, I'll put it this way. One of the ideas that I had, my mom had actually brought this up to me, is to be a voice actor. And I was like, oh, okay, that could be cool. She's like, oh, you have such a good voice. You should do something with it. And I'm like, well, I kind of do already. I do the podcast, and I think I do have a good voice as well. And I have some ambitions in my life to use my voice in a way to be able to speak to people. And when I'm selling ice cream, it's very helpful for me to be able to like, how are you guys doing today? Oh, very good, very good. That's excellent to hear. Just make people feel comfortable. And to be able to use my words to make money, that'd be cool. That's kind of the point of the pod. Not necessarily the point, but that's a option for opportunity with a podcast. I haven't made any money yet. I don't expect to make any money on the podcast for a while. Probably like a year, if I'm honest with you. But that's how things go sometimes, and you just have to be realistic and open to change and new opportunities as they arrive. But I think it would be a good idea. To do that, to basically, whether I wanted to create some motivational content and I put like, just a speech that I had written behind it, or if I wanted to read a part of the book and just create the atmosphere for it, maybe put like a voice changer on or something in certain parts, put specific music on, really try to create an atmosphere. I think that could be fun. So I'm not sure, I get it when people watch these videos, they are certainly not watching the entire thing sometimes, maybe not even like a first 10 minutes. Or if this is like, I actually don't know how long this episode is right now. I want to say maybe like a half hour to 40 minutes. We'll see what that mark is right now. But regardless, I just want people to hear me. I feel like a lot of people just want to be heard in life as well. But I think the words I have to say are worth listening to. And I hope that if people are listening that they've gotten to this part so I can ask this question. If you think that's something you would like to see or that would be interesting, I'm going to try it out because just as well, I could have 10 people be like, yeah, John, go for it. It's a great idea. Me do it and those 10 people not even care. We'll see what happens, But if you think it's a good idea or if you want to see some content like that, I'm open to experimenting with a lot of different stuff. I have always wanted to be a content creator. I am a content creator. I do the Socks with John. Obviously, I do the podcast and, with the Binghamton Restaurant Review And, with some other stuff as well, I don't see there ever being a limitation for my content, like the specifics of what I can and can't produce. To the extent of if people really wanted to see it, I would do video games. I don't really want to do that because it's kind of niche and I don't think that's super productive outside of like making people feel good to watch it. I certainly watched a lot of YouTube growing up, and that was a big part of like the gaming culture at the time when I was like, 14, 15 or younger, even when I was playing Minecraft. Some of the enjoyment of playing the game came through seeing how other people played it as well and having that favorite YouTuber or favorite creator to go to and being like, oh, watch this person do this and then try to recreate it myself, or just have the sense of community with your friends. Be like, yo, for instance, Captain Sparkles just dropped a new video, or, controversy aside, at the time, I really liked Sky Does Minecraft. That was actually one of my favorite YouTubers for Minecraft. Or like, I'm 25 years old now, so the people that I used to watch are unfortunately mostly long gone. Like Captain Sparkle still makes Minecraft content, but he's like one of the last holdouts, like truly one of the last holdouts, and he doesn't even do it on the main channel, I don't think, anymore. But the Yogscast, they still do Minecraft. I think they're doing like the mod pack now. I've been watching the whole thing. I love that stuff. So, creating content that's fulfilling, it's fun for the person, should be all that it's worth, outside of like what they want to do with it. But my advent in life is that I want to create life, or I want to create life. Yeah. Come here, baby. I want to create, yeah, I do want kids as well, but I want to create in life that which makes people happy. So at the very least, if like my videos make people happy, I also want it to be productive so that they can use it for something. So when I give information or when I'm sharing a story or my experience, I want somebody to be like, wow, I was able to take what you said or what you learned or how you experienced your life at that time and do something with it. Whether it was like it changed my mind about something, it added nuance to the conversations that I usually have with people, or it provided a specific, you know, the foundation for something so I can build upon a new idea or open a door for my new school of thought, whatever. I just don't want it to be lousy content solely created to make money on them. That is not the prerogative at all. There are some people that I've slowly watched deteriorate into the it's kind of like the money pit that their channel, not money pit in the way of like you're just throwing money into it, but all they're concerned with is money. I'm not going to like call anybody out and say like all they're concerned with is money. That's not very kind to do. And I don't think it would be very productive, cuz my words in that case, the only things they would do would draw attention to them, solely being there for money, and then, they would probably lose money because people aren't, buying it anymore, I could say. So that's not the point. And I'm not referring to anybody that like I know. It's more like YouTube channels like I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to say like specifically, but YouTube channels that are like that do like tech stuff. I've seen some tech YouTubers that have gone off the wayside when it came to like providing for their community, like creating content that they would like versus just trying to make money off of every single person watching. It's like, okay, you have a 25-minute video and it's got like 7 different times that there's ads running on it, and then there's like 3 different times you're promoting your own products in it. It's like you were really just making videos for money at this point. And that's fine. For some people, that's their job, whatever, but if you one day start a channel and you're like, oh, the entire purpose of this channel is to create good content, but only do stuff that I like. And then like, 10 years from there, you're like just trying to crank as much money and squeeze your audience dry for every dollar that they have. Like, you lost the plot. You lost your same mentality you started with. And preserving your sense of self and holding a stronger resolve is a very important thing in my life. Being able to say that I stand for what I stood for. And, 10 years ago when I was filled with self-conviction, I thought I was right. And maybe my opinions have evolved in the past 10 years, but I still believe in some sense that I'm right or that what I was doing was correct. That's productive to me. That is productive to me. Otherwise, you're selling out. And I'm not going to sell out to, just try to make a ton of money in regards to, my content. Yes, the socks will start making money at some point, and I'm sure that I'll face criticism for like, oh, John, you only do this to make money. Well, the Stocks with John, I've done for over a year so far, and I have only spent money on that. I haven't really spent money promoting the videos. Not really. I feel like if I get in a habit of doing that, I'll be spending a lot of money just promoting the videos, and then it'll take even longer to recoup that if I start spending that type of money now. I just kind of rather passively and through the goodwill of my character try to influence people to like me if they so choose to. They don't have to really, but what I'm trying to say is it's more important for me to enjoy what I'm creating than to just do something that is going to be the best to make money. If that was the case, if I just wanted to make money on YouTube, then I would just, do like pop politics or sensationalist news that would be constantly, regurgitated through every other available outlet for news. And that's not something I want to do at all. The purpose of this channel is to educate and inform people and to be a space for those that don't feel like they have an opportunity to speak for themselves. So that's why I have people on that are more obscure. That's why I have conversations with people about mental health and about things that are not necessarily in the mainstream media, because I feel like they need to be spoken about, even if it's not the most popular thing. So it's been a little bit of a crazier episode. We've talked about a lot of stuff. I still do have one more thing I'd like to talk about that I kind of alluded to so far. And I kind of will just say, I suppose, that's what I regard as the constant. It's a plan that I have for the next 15 years. Basically, it's been put in motion 5 years ago, which I thought was going to take 15 years. Now I realize, it's going to take like 20 years. But I call it the constant. So basically, for the next 10 years, I'm going to try to make as absolute most money I can in an ethical regard. I don't need to be screwing people over to, make more money. Basically, I need to make, in my understanding of how things are going to work, $10 to $15 million by 2035. Reason B, I would like to help people with this money. And so I'm hoping to be able to kind of have like these rallies, if you would put them as, alluding to something larger. But basically, where I'm just able to ask people, hey, who needs help? And then immediately help these people. Just go around the country, plop down, these places that need help. And the idea is, I encourage people to go spend money to local businesses, and if people need help, to search through within their community and try to bring that specific community the help that they need. And then as things kind of get going, I'm, maybe I collect donations, and I don't have to be the person that's footing the bill for absolutely everything. I can kind of be offset by donations. But the purpose of me basically making any type of money for the next like 15 years is going to be in the regards of to kind of fuel this advent of what I hope to do come that time. So that'll be exciting once that time actually comes, but there's going to be a lot of things that have to happen in between there. We're not necessarily focusing on that now because, so many things can happen in the next 10 years. But, I'm still alluding to kind of like the grander idea of what I have in mind. But it's hopefully to help as much people along the way. So that's why it's important to ethically create this content and not simply do it just to basically drag as much cash out of people as I possibly can. So having intentions, having principles is very important to me because I think it defines who you are as a man, who you are as a person. As a man, I can only speak from my sense of being a man. I can't be like, it also makes you a better woman. I know people. I've known a lot of people, so I can say with certainty that those that have figured out life, or at least figured out larger portions of life, are usually the ones that have understood themselves the best. The better that you can understand how you are or how you will assess a situation, like, okay, if you can understand you have a bias when you go into something, it's like, okay, I'm going to try my best to withhold that bias. You might understand that you have it, but if you can understand that you should try to repress it or at least ignore it for a little bit so you can gather information in a separate regard without that influence, that is a very mature and important trait that I would say that more people should have, or at least aspire to have. It's very important to be able to evaluate yourself and to know who you are and what you need to do and what's going to be best for you. I'm somebody who has struggled with mental health issues for a while, and so I've gone through a lot of different medicines, a lot of different therapists, and the biggest thing is about finding what works, because there's things that work for other people, obviously. There's medicines and therapists and methods of trying to find healing that are helpful for other people. I used to be friends with somebody who was a raging alcoholic. All of his problems were solved by drinking. Eventually those consequences changed everything in his life, and I don't even speak to that individual now. But it kind of worked for him at that time, right? For me, I can't stand drinking, so I'm certainly not going to be putting all my feelings into a bottle and then seeing where it goes from there. And I don't encourage people to just drink away their problems as well. I'm not saying that that's even a solution, that you should do that at all. I don't condone that activity. It's very self-destructive. But what I will say is that if you find something that works for you, whether it be, a vice in a certain regard, you shouldn't take it as, how other people judge it to be. So if you're taking a medicine and it's working for you, but other people are like, oh, that's terrible for you. Oh, I took it and it made me crazy. And you're like, okay, well, it doesn't make me crazy because, you and I aren't quite exactly the same. You just have to let people enjoy what makes them happy. Unless it's hurting other people. If it's not hurting other people, then you need to be more open to that. And so these principles in life that are important for people to remember is that I personally enjoy when you have a strong sense of self, and that's what I look for in a partner as well. I hope that my next girlfriend or whatever, they have a strong personality. I think that's attractive because I enjoy being with people that are not easily influenced by what I say. I think I'm pretty good with words, and it's been a fault of mine at times to convince people to do things, or maybe what I've said or through the examples that I've given, or my experiences that have influenced their lives have not necessarily been the best course of action, or perhaps the only course of action. For instance, I had a couple people actually, like at this point, there's like 3 or 4 different people that had actually dropped out of college a year or so or around the same time that I did because they thought that was the right thing to do. I had reassured, or not reassure them, but I had to make sure that it was known that worked for me, or that's what I wanted to do because of XYZ or things that had happened in my life, whatever. That's not necessarily the universal solution to I'm having a problem with college, I should just drop out. I didn't go to college because I didn't want to get a liberal arts degree like I had planned to. I wanted to go to school, get a liberal arts degree, get an English degree, then either become a teacher or become a like a writer or an author. And so I realized that I didn't need to go to school to do one of those things, to be an author. So I dropped out after going to school for a week and a half, which was 9 big days, 9 whole days, not even 9 full days, eight full days in one not full day because I dropped out after my second class of the day. Anyway, after that, I got a job as a freelance writer, and I hated it. I really did not like it because it was just doing busy work, or it was doing homework. Quite literally, I was working for a company, and they were just assigning homework from other people. That was like, hey, yeah, this is our client. They sent in this stuff. Can you just do this? And it's like their chemistry homework. It's like, what? Like, you're kidding me if this is actually what people are hoping for, at least from that company. So I realized that I didn't like it. And so that's the decision that I made, that college perhaps is not the idea, or the idea that I have for my life. And I realized that the things that I want to do had absolutely nothing to do with college. So, like starting an ice cream business. Yeah, you could go to college and you could spend money on a degree and then, find yourself in debt and then be like, okay, now I feel prepared to open this ice cream business. Or you could just do it because, some things are easier said than done, and some things you have to do before you can say anything about them. For the ice cream business, I've found great success in that. I've also ran into a lot of difficulties. It's been, I will say, starting a business, being a business owner, is the most difficult thing I've ever done in my entire life. I've had to endure things that were pretty difficult as well. I've had some shitty things happen to me. Who hasn't? But opening a business, maintaining a business, other businesses that I've opened, it's been the most difficult thing I've ever found. But the biggest butt in the world, Bernie, or who is it? Not Bernie Mac. Rest in peace, Bernie Mac, not Bernie Mac. Why did I say Bernie Mac? He's not that fat. R.I.P. Fat Albert, I guess. I don't know. Fat Albert, that's the type of butt I'm talking about right now. But it has been incredibly rewarding as well. Incredibly rewarding. I have learned so much. I've found myself. I've created relationships. I've made some money. But that's, if you just want to make money, I'll put it this way: go work on Wall Street. They don't care about anything but money. Go get a job at a bank. Go to school so you can get a degree. Try to go to one of the Ivy League. Go to Cornell. Go to Harvard. Go to Princeton. Go to wherever. Go work on Wall Street. Make as much money as you want. Right? Stuff your conscience in the garbage and then forget about it for a while. If that's your prerogative in life, why not go for it? I'm sure you're gonna step on a lot of throats on your way up to the top if you even get close to the top. But if that's what you want to do, if your prerogative in life is just to make as much money as possible, that's honestly probably the best way to do it in the United States, is just go work on Wall Street. If you want to learn as much as possible about the process of opening businesses and becoming an entrepreneur, You have to open a business and become an entrepreneur. You have to do things the old-fashioned way, which is, I say sometimes the hardest way to do things is the right way because you learn the most along the way. If it's not done correctly, usually, it's not going to be done perfectly. So what is correctly anyway? Another saying I have is if you do something right, or better yet, there's two ways to do things. You could do it the right way and you could do it again. When you have to do things again and again and again and again and again, you start to learn. But if you're told how to do something and you're never even given that opportunity to fail, then you're going to fail in a very inopportune time because you're not going to know something critical to your process. So say that instead of making my own ice cream, understanding my business structure, creating my clientele, and then, appealing to the certain people that, I want as customers, instead of doing any of that, I just went and I worked for somewhere that had already done all that. And they didn't teach me about how to do any of those things. I just went in and started scooping up ice cream. Or better yet, I started working for a rolled ice cream company. And I was like, oh, I know how to roll ice cream now. I'm going to go do that on my own. I would be so ill-equipped to actually start my business and start selling simply because I don't know. I know how to roll ice cream, for this hypothetical. Yeah, okay, I know how to roll ice cream. That doesn't mean I know how to own the business. That doesn't mean I know how to manage employees, how to hire people, how to connect with businesses, how to promote myself, how to do marketing, any of that. And I really didn't know how to do that when I started, but it's through the past 5 years now, going into my 6th year in business, that I understood that you just need to do it. You just have to try. You have to try doing it. You're going to fail monumentally, and you will time and time and time and time and time again. That's just the process. And there are no shortcuts because that shortcut is going to put you back further than you thought in the long run. Because if I didn't make these decisions, if I didn't make these failures, if I didn't overcome them and eventually learn something 5 years ago, I would 5 years from now or a year from now or this year. And then when I run into these problems that are more fundamental to the entire expansion of my business or how I even conduct business at all, then a critical failure at that moment is absolutely going to destroy the business that I've built. And so when you don't do things correctly, you have to do them again. But if you don't do things correctly ever and you don't accept that you're making a mistake, it compounds and compounds, and you will have no choice but to face your failure eventually. You'll have no choice. It'll come. And believe me, I've worked with a lot of other business owners. I could tell you stories about people I know very well that have made mistakes in business, and a lot of that is compounding mistakes that they're ignorant to or that they think they're too good to handle. I'm not going to talk about specifically who I'm referring to in this, but somebody that I had actually bought a business from with another partner that I had some years ago was letting it go to absolute shit. They were letting it go down the drain, and we were basically scooping it up. I'll put it this way. They had 26 clients for a specific business when they were running it. By the time we got it in our hands a month and a half later, we had 18 clients. And by the time we actually got ripping and roaring, like in a couple months after that, I think we had 15. And we wanted to, we tried our best, but the mistakes that person was making, they were not willing to admit were mistakes. They thought they knew best, and so their business suffered and suffered and suffered. And by the time we got it and we tried to change things, we realized how deep-seated these mistakes that were, compounded from the 5 years prior, the 4 or whatever years it was, of that person owning the business. Eventually, we found out that there were critical failures that were going to upset the entire dynamic of the business. So, a lot of things had to change, and we lost more customers, and, we had to change prices, and I'm sure people weren't incredibly happy about that. But we really didn't have a choice because, taking over that business, seeing the issues that there were, it was either continue failing until we have 0 clients, and then starting over somewhere, just getting rid of the business entirely, or changing and admitting, or, rather the other way around, admitting and then changing what needs to be changed. So it's a very, very important thing. And I'll say again, it's very important to have a strong sense of self, because if you do, then you can admit when you're wrong and realize that, okay, we got to switch tactics here, because things happen. We don't live in a perfect world. Maybe for somebody we do, somebody has everything done perfect for them. But for everybody else, it's not perfect. And so you kind of have to expect that things aren't going to be perfect, for a long time, but just try your best. But when you have a strong sense of self and you can admit that you were wrong, you can start pragmatically looking for new solutions. And that is like the biggest thing, especially when it comes to how I evaluate like politics. I think pragmatic solutions, and that's part of also why I'm a moderate, or why I'm an independent, because if you pick one extreme, if you say you're a Democrat or say you're a Republican, you're missing out on some of the validities that can be found in the opposite party. For people that have a certain understanding about politics, they know that, the sides exist because they do have some credence to them. At the very fundamental level, there's a reason one side exists and there's a reason the other side exists. And there are some good things to be said, but for the most part, I believe that there's, the two political parties, you get closer to the top, or the people that are actually like, in charge of those parties, they all think the same, exactly the same. It's just about division. It's about divisiveness between the American people, because if we were all on the same page, we would not be able to be ruled as easily. That's quite literally the point of having two political parties, is that if one side is winning, the other side is losing, and you will never have a third party because it's too easy to control people. And once you start to realize that, you will never look at politics the same. Once you realize that everybody else is on the same side and it's the people versus those that rule us, then maybe you can be an independent moderate. We'll see how that goes. I mean, I encourage everybody to disband their political affiliations and try to reevaluate how the world really is. I do this every single day. I reevaluate my opinions on things, because I feel like it's a very healthy thing to do. Because I think I told myself once, if I'm the same person I was 10 years ago, I've wasted, it's not a quote from me, but maybe even Abraham Lincoln. I don't know. I don't want to put words in people's mouths. But if, whoever had said this, if I'm the same man that I was 10 years ago, then I'd wasted 10 years of my life. I think it's very important to be fluid, dynamic, and be willing to accept the nuances of life and change accordingly, or at least adapt. You don't have to like fundamentally reevaluate yourself and be, oh, I have a new religion, I have a new sexuality, I have a new political orientation. No, just as new information comes, don't strictly adhere to that which you've been told in the past. Like if information is what shapes your idea for politics, then allow new information to continuously improve that idea or that perception of politics. Because otherwise you're stuck in the ground. You don't want to be that. So I've certainly talked about a lot of different things today. One of the things that I really wanted to touch on, unfortunately, it's probably going to have to make its way into a different video. I don't think I'm necessarily prepared to share everything yet, but I think an evaluation of this year should be exciting. We're going to keep doing the podcast on a couple days of the week. Every Sunday, we're going to be doing the Binghamton Food Review every day, or hopefully every day. Most days. I'll say every day. You know what? Every single day, we're going to be doing the Socks with John. So those three things are going to be what content I create. And then as time gets closer to our season, we'll be having and I might also do some other things for content as well. So for content, I say Binghamton Food Review, In When You're Out podcast, Socks with John, and then I might do some speeches with, like an edit for like some cool music. That could be fun. But also excerpt readings from my book. That could be fun as well. So that could be all the content that I do. And then come May or come April, we will most likely have the convention, the anime convention or the NerdCon, whatever that comes to be. And then in May, we'll have our ice cream season start. We'll do that throughout the summer. I have some plans to collaborate with plenty of people, one of them being like the local library, to try to get some people in there. That would be cool. I think that'd be fun. To get free ice cream if everybody comes in and shows me their library card, or if they want to go get a library card, because it's free to get one. So that'd be kind of cool. And then obviously, hopefully as the, hopefully things go well for us, and as the year winds down, we'll find ourselves around like the November, December area again of 2025, then we can actually be selling socks. And that'd be really cool. That'd be fantastic. So I always have new projects going on. I always have things that I'm hoping to accomplish. But if you guys want to see anything specific, I've mentioned a lot of stuff for content wise. If you guys are like, oh, John, you should do like slam poetry. If somebody makes a suggestion, you know what? I'll try it out. We'll try it for 1 or 2 videos. If it does really well, you never know. So if somebody's like, oh, John, I really want to see that Oblivion content. Like, okay, I don't know about that. But if somebody really wants, why not? We'll try it out. I do not have the setup to be able to record any type of content like gaming content. So don't give your hopes, unless you want to buy me a computer, a desktop. I have a desktop computer. It's just old as could be. My one friend built it from scraps that he got from a job he used to work at, because he used to be, I don't know, actually. I don't remember exactly. But he was like a software developer, an engineer or something. And so he got a lot of computer parts from their garbage, because they have to stay up to date. So if they don't have like the bleeding edge, not bleeding edge, but they don't have like the newest technology, like cutting edge technology, then they have to scrap it basically. And so, I have a desktop tower that's like 25 years old, but the components aren't like as old. Maybe like my motherboard's like 15 years old. My processors are like 5 years old. Oh, actually, no. No, probably 10 years old, honestly, as well. So yeah, it's pretty old. So I don't know if I can necessarily do like, I would love to do like Skyrim or Oblivion content. That could be fun, but I don't have the oh, I'll tell you what, when Elder Scrolls 6 comes out, I will absolutely, whatever things look like at the time, I hope to make some content of that, because I love the Elder Scrolls games. I mean, I've only played 2 so far, but I really do enjoy that. But yeah, I don't really necessarily have the equipment to do something like that. So if anybody out there is watching, if anybody has like an extra $1,200 they want to buy my entire setup, so I can start making some video game content. If that's truly what you want, we'll try anything at this point, because you know what? If you shut yourself down to what's available, then you're cutting yourself out of opportunities that you don't even know exist yet. So, like I said, we're still doing Stocks with John, still doing the Anywhere Near Out podcast. We're definitely going to be doing the Binghamton food review. We're definitely having the anime convention. Vibes with Ice Cream starts back up in May. And then obviously, hopefully even by the summer, maybe, before the end of the summer, I'd like to be selling socks. So that'd be fun. But that's what you can expect for this year. I'm sure a lot of things are going to change, and I'm sure a lot of things are going to be added on to what I have, like 6 different things I had said. I keep counting on my fingers when I do this, but so if that's something that sounds exciting, hopefully, like I said, I'll take any type of advice as well. And the excerpts of the book, and some speeches maybe, or some edits. I do have somebody who's going to come on next Sunday for our next episode. Today is Wednesday, so I'll probably have at least 1 or 2 more episodes. Maybe I'll record one tomorrow, maybe on Saturday as well, or Friday as well. We'll see what happens. But just as well, this is unfortunately going to be the end of our episode today. This is actually quite a long one so far, maybe about an hour at this point. The video I'm recording now is at 32 minutes now. So I think this is going to be wrapping up point for us today. I think we got to speak about a lot of different things. I'm really relying on this video. If you've never commented on any of my videos before, I'll ask you, please. If you've never commented on it, or even if you had, please allow this to be the video that you comment on. I'm really looking for people's advice and their evaluation of what I've said on here today. So if you could just be kind and like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. But truly, if today could be the day that you comment on one of my videos and give me some advice about what you think about what I've said on here today, I would appreciate it more than anything. Truly, if you could have offered that to me, I would very much appreciate that. I'd be very grateful. So thank you. I'd like to build a nice, strong sense of community here. I'll even shout you guys out. If you offer some good advice, the next podcast I might say, hey, so this person left a comment and it was very helpful, so I just want to shout them out, draw some attention to their page, whatever else, if they'd like to. Not necessarily if you don't want that, then no problem at all. But it should be a good encouraging. It should be good to encourage other people to do more of what they like to do as well. So. Thank you, everybody who tuned into the In One Ear Out podcast today. As always, I'm your host, John. I will see you guys again very soon. Please enjoy the music that's playing. I'm not sure who we have on today, but thank you, everybody who sent in some music and whatnot. So that's very helpful. That's all for me today, guys. Like I said, I will see you again very soon, I'm sure. Peace out. Adios, mis muchachos. I'll see you again.